Today on the Pick Joy podcast, I am joined by Tanya MFK. After growing up in a lot of instability, experiencing deep personal loss early in her life, and building a global career across Fortune 500 companies, startups, and independent businesses, she came to a very clear conclusion. There is no magical someday in the future. Tomorrow is not promised. Today, her work reflects that realization, and it is about designing success on your terms and living your best life right now, not as a reward, but as a requirement. Welcome, Tanya. It is such a pleasure to have you on my show. Hello, and today on the Pick Joy podcast, I am joined by Tanya MFK. After growing up in quite a bit of instability and experiencing some personal loss early in life and building a global career across Fortune 500 companies, startups, and independent businesses, she came to a very clear conclusion. There's no magical someday in the future. Tomorrow is not promised. Today, her work reflects that realization. It's about designing success on your terms and living your best life right now, not as a reward, but as a requirement. Welcome, Tanya. It is such a pleasure to have you on my show.
Yes, I am so excited to be here and dive into joy.
Thank you. Tanya, when I think of you, I think of someone who has actually lived the questions that most people only think about. You have lived really high highs and very low lows, and I assume everything in between. Been inside global business, deep personal practice, and emerged in a number of very different cultures.
Yeah.
And before we get into your work, I want to talk about who you are in this season of your life underneath titles and roles.
Wow, what a powerful question. This is indeed a season and an interesting one, actually. I'm going through the big perimenopause, so I'm sure there are a group of listeners that understand what that might mean. For those of you that might not, there's a lot of things coming my way, not just physical, but it brings up a lot of questions about this part of the journey of your life, right? Midlife, changes, who you are and where you are as a woman. I've also made some recent moves, been spending a lot of time between the two countries that I live in right now, which is Czech and Italy. And our place in Italy is actually far away up in the mountains. And so that has brought in a lot of interesting things. And so this phase collectively, I'm definitely in the middle of it, of transformation, as well as a real call to connection and community, which is really interesting because I've been working online since 2001. I think I might predate Skype. Okay. So that's how long I've been doing this. And so going through all those years of figuring out, where I am and who I'm at and what I've been doing, and then coming to this point to have it kind of all come up again to go, who are you? What are you doing? And working online so long and not having that same type of connection, I'm seeing a real call to foster that in whatever way I can. And even online, that some of us just aren't in those same physical spaces. So being able to come back to connection, community, I think we all come to a point someplace to say, come back to what really matters. But I would say that, yes, this is my season, but I would feel safe to say that with the state of the world and things are going on, this is coming up for a lot of people right now, right?
I agree.
So that's where I am. I'm not sure if that is in a nutshell, but that's where I'm at in this phase, full honesty.
I think that's very much in alignment with where most of us are at this point, the listeners and myself as well. And now to also share the other side of you, when you do put words to what you do in the world professionally, how do you usually introduce yourself?
Well, it definitely depends on the room, right? A lot of my work is split into two parts, right? There is the concept of the someday myth. And this is where a lot of the focus in my world is about bringing into focus what it means to live a life of the things that matter, right? And one of the things I talk about a lot is that Most of us have been on Instagram or some other social platform where we have found something that says beautiful, like live life now and be your best and all of that. And it's so lovely. We're like, oh, yes, that's what I need to do. But what does that mean? And what does that look like at 6 a.m. tomorrow or when the kids are sick or just the reality of life? And so I always tell people we have to take that idea that's up in the clouds and we have to bring it down into the mud because that's where things actually grow, right? That's we don't plant seeds in the sky, we plant them in the ground, right? So we have to get down into the ground. And so that part of my work is definitely rooted in living the life that's free of some days, right? Today is your someday. You know, we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's no someday. If you're going to live a full life, the time to live it is right now. And so typically, if I'm talking to somebody like that, I go, I help people live the life that they want, right? And that opens up, obviously, conversation. On the business side, in a similar vein, right? I've been in business for a long time. I know what it's like to work for yourself, be a solopreneur. I know I'm in good company speaking to the serial entrepreneur herself as well. And the thing in that space and what had been around for so long, which I'm sure anyone listening here, if you've been in this space for a bit, you know, the hustle culture, right? The hustle culture, the 10X, the whole thing, right? Oh, do, go, go. And so in the same vein of this someday living, right? Which is, you know, comes from my experience with loss and life changing, I bring that into the business space. Because again, we hear those concepts that say, hey, tomorrow's not promised. That's lovely to think about, right? We know memento mori, right? We might die. We understand that there's benefit to pulling that, but goodness, it's not necessarily where we always want to live, right? So how do we put ourselves into this future-focused world, which is typically in business, right? Ambitious and all that, and still live today, right? Be present and be in our best life. And so that side of business, I really bring the someday concept in. And so as to answer your question, how would I explain it? I am a business strategist that focuses on life first business strategy. And life first business strategy takes into consideration the very real reality of your life, your capacity, and what else matters. And how do you marry that with the ambition and drive that needed to build a business? And there is a way, and I think we found it quite well. That's how I would explain it.
Do you think your definition of success has changed over the years?
Oh, 100%. I'm going to really date myself here. Well, I mean, I think I already did with the perimenopause, but I am originally from California, American. So one of the movies I loved when I was younger was Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Okay, Christina Applegate, for those of you who don't know, it's a comedy, definitely kind of like the young coming of age comedy. And in that movie, for those of you who know, you're already nodding your head like, oh, I know where she's going with this. So part of the character, she ends up landing this amazing fashion job and she works with this lady and she always has to answer like, I'm on top of that, Rose, whatever she does. She's just like, and she's going and she's jet setting. And I remember like, oh, that's like what I want, that movement, that constant, just yes, go, go, go. I remember being envious, that would be the word, of like full diaries, right? People who had like full planners. So anyone who grew up in the 80s, for some reason, 80s in the US, for some reason, they would always give us planners, like calendar planners as kids. Like, what were we planning? What were we doing? And I want to fill it. Like, I'm going to Sarah's house for a sleepover. I didn't have plans. I was 9, right? But in my head, I had this, like, that was the dream. And how many more movies came up just showing that powerful woman jet setting around and being in charge? And man, I wanted that. And the truth is, I went into that space. I'm from LA. I went into work in music. I worked in production. I flew around. I was flown across the country to go to 158 different stores at the time that they had at Whole Foods had. I mean, I was doing that. Concerts, all the stuff. Then life starts lifing, right? Things start really, and here's the thing. I don't think that you need a breakdown necessarily to have this moment that success requires that. We need to look at success and redefine it at different points in our life. In my world, the life shifted, right? I lost my husband in 2005. I had a huge betrayal from my mentor, all these different things that went on through the years. And each one of those moments, I think, actually required me to redefine success. Right. And I didn't know necessarily at the time that that's what I was doing. But as that time went on, you get more wisdom, but new things come into your view and you go, Oh, that actually matters more right now. My biggest dream used to be I wanted to be the jet-setting aunt, right? Who just showed up for birthdays and was like, here's your gift from, Zimbabwe. And now I want to garden and be with my son and my husband. I've since remarried, and I want the most excitingly boring life. And that becomes what matters. And the definition of success for me now, it looks like freedom. It looks like just getting to be in bed if I'm sick and not having to call somebody. It looks like the strong network that I have of people I genuinely love to have conversations with, not just people that are networking for my business and yada, yada, but like this community and things that I've created. Like that is what success is now.
Yeah.
That's now. Talk to me next year. Might have a new little definition, right? But I think that's the thing is that if we're paying attention, if we're not outsourcing our presence and now to something else, these moments come naturally. They will present themselves to say, is that still who you are? You want to take a look at it? Do you want to think about it? And now I'm getting excited, Sabine. I actually think that those moments, that is such a pivotal point where we actually get to say, will I choose joy? Right? Because the whole idea of this creating your life and all that, it's not some magic thing like, follow what Tony Robbins did, or this CEO does a 3-hour morning routine. Like I'm all for morning routines. That stuff is great. But the reality is that if we don't ever come back and go, how do I want my life to look? How does it feel right now? Then it's not going to magically come to it. Right? Like this is the thing that gets me every time is that growing up, almost everybody here, I'm almost positive that 99.9% of you were asked as a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? Did they ask who you want to be? What kind of person, what kind of values? Did they ask you what the successful day would look like to you? What you would want to enjoy? No.
Or how it would feel, right? Like, how do you want to feel when you grow up?
And here's the biggest issue with that question is that it says, what do you want to be? Or maybe even they said, who do you want to be when you grow up? I doubt it, but what do you want to be? It actually wasn't even asking what. It was asking what job you want. It was asking about your career. And how much of you is that, really? So they wanted to hear, I want to be a fireman. I wanted to, whatever it is, right? We were given the opportunity to answer that question, though. That's the difference. It was asked so darn much that we actually had the opportunity to go, let me think about it. And that was a kid. Then it happens again, right? Through elementary, definitely happens in high school. Oh, absolutely happens if you're headed to college, right? So we've adjusted to learn how to think in career terms into how will I make money? And we learn subconsciously to adopt that into who I am. That's who I am. So that's its own issue, right? But I say that to say, imagine if we had those same opportunities to zoom out and say, how do I want to live? How do I create joy in my life? How do I have a life I enjoy? And give some thought, even in those brief moments, to that. We're not presented with opportunities to have those conversations or have those thoughts. And that is why most times it is people who have gone through loss and tragedy who have the moment. It's a crappy way to find the moment, but that moment is so powerful. And I think the difference is if we can figure out how to create joy in the midst of sorrow and pain, how much more capable are we to do it when we're feeling okay, when life is feeling good, right?
Right. I've told this story before, but I was on a flight from Milan to Greece, and I was seated next to an Italian monk. And we had a fabulous conversation. At the end of the flight, he asked me, he said, what do you think is the most important thing in life? And I was like, this is a trick question because of course I'm going to say like love. I don't know. So, and at the end he said, no, it's realizing that we all have the power of choice.
Yeah.
And at first when he said that, I was like, oh, that's nice. And then now it's been like, I think 4 years since I had that conversation, and it becomes more and more significant. And what you just said, like that, okay, we can have these realizations in times when we hit rock bottom, but to actually realize that we do have the power of choice, even when things are decent or they look really good on the outside. On paper, we have a fabulous life, but inside we feel unhappy, right? To realize, wait a second, I do have the power of choice. I don't need to wait until life forces me to change, but I can make small changes right now. Like I was thinking the other day, I was like, God, I am so busy. And God, I hate being stressed out in the morning. And I had to take myself back and say, okay, wait a second. Why don't you just adjust your calendar online so people can't book you before a certain hour? So you can actually go outside and take the dog for a walk and get a little bit of sunshine and have your tea. You don't need to start at 6 a.m. It's up to you. Yeah. So I think it's realizing that we do have the power of choice.
It's the realization and creating the space to actually think, like to go, well, what can I do about it? Right. And I think you hit it right there is most of the times that space is created through through tragedy, through loss, through something that makes your world stop. And it has its benefit. Like ideally, we don't all have to go through tragedy and loss to get there. So if that's the case, how do we create moments like that? Not even create moments of realization, just create moments to think. Just create moments to say, actually, it's February. What do I want this month to look like? We do these monthly reflection and planning sessions in our group. And that's one of the questions. We make decisions to go, who is, insert month, Tanya, right? So who is March Tanya? Because February Tanya might have needed to be somebody else. Who's March Tanya? Now, you don't have to get this granular, right? We're in business, we do certain things. But even taking a moment to just simply go, who do I want to be this month? Who am I now? What really matters to me? They seem like existential questions because we typically only hear people asking that in their own existential crisis, right?
Right.
That's the point I'm trying to get at here is that we need to learn. If we agree that this is valuable, we agree that figuring out how we want to feel in life, we agree that it's much better to clearly identify, like, how do I want my days to look? And hey, I only have one life. What do I want? Then we have to go to the next step and go, this is the boring part, right? When do I schedule time? Like it might be that boring. Blocking it out on your calendar, blocking it so no one else can book you for those entrepreneurs out there, right? And actually sitting down and doing it. Or getting the worksheet or coming to one of our monthly planning and reflection sessions, right? It's creating the space. That's the small movement that you do to take these big ideas like, oh, what do I want to do with my life? And not wait for life to force you to look at it, but actually to create it in the small spaces, in the weekly reviews, in the monthly reviews, and ideally not just the yearly. Like I get it. Most people do this, some version of this around December 31st, right? And then we make this big plan of who you're going to be, but it's not in those big decisions, right? No. It's in those small moments. And I think that's the huge part. And I have one more thing before I forget. We have to remember that we have a choice. And to add to that, similar vein, like a monk, if those of you have heard of Sadhguru, one of my favorite out there, but he's all, I don't know what the term is, but let's say monkish, right? Indian monk, which is not the word, but
monkish.
He's one of those. And one of the things that he talks about that I love, and I use it all the time, is the concept of responsibility. Right? We know that word, responsibility, which is kind of like, it's my fault, it's responsible. No. He takes and he goes, responsibility. Take the word for what it is. It is your ability to respond. And so when you're in a situation, you're going, I don't like this. I don't like this, the way this looks, or whatever it is, wherever you are in life. And you're like, you have responsibility. And the problem is most people take that and go, so it's my fault. We go, no. You have the ability to respond to this. You have power in this situation. As soon as you take away responsibility, you're powerless. So look at your situation and go, where can I use my responsibility in this? Where can I use my ability to respond to this and reclaim the power you have in that situation? That's my second little tip there. Courtesy of Sadhguru, it wasn't me.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about the different environments you lived in, because this is really, to me, really exciting and really interesting. You lived in a Shaolin temple for a while. You've lived global business, now your location independent, I want to call it,
Yeah.
like you're in different places. What did those contrasts teach you about, let's say, effort and discipline on one side and joy on the other? And maybe what didn't change across those
Mm.
different environments, you know?
Yeah, that is a really incredible question. I like that. There's so many spaces we can go. So, well, I guess first and foremost, the different environments, right? I guess just for a little timeline here, I mean, the first environment I grew up in was in Southern California, right? I'm part Mexican, so we're kind of a poor Mexican family, went through homeless shelters as a kid. So, a whole different environment, right? That environment of needing to figure it out, already being on rock bottom, right? Already trying to go, how do I just get to normal? How do I get to bare
Right.
minimum, right? And that, I think that obviously as a child, it's extremely formative years, but that also instilled in me the drive to really, I'm not one that needs to be motivated. I mean, I get it. Like, I get it now with perimenopause, maybe sometimes, but most of my life, that wasn't it. I had this burn in me to like go forward and make something happen. And then that took me into the corporate environment. My background's actually in clinical research. And so I was doing clinical research and that talk about the go, 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 fast, 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 make it happen. And I was right there with it, right? I was like, yes, like let's do it. Because the more you do, the quicker you get successful. And then I was like, and I mean, American, right? So I'm like, picket fence, I need it. Car, I need it. This, I need it. Gotta buy the house, gotta buy the stuff. I gotta make it. I gotta make it so I can finally
Arrive.
right? I will
Yes.
finally arrive, the moment of success, and they'll play the trumpets and they'll be like, you now get to relax forever, right? I'm sure some of you are laughing with this as well because
I know.
you know you've thought this and been there, right? And yeah, surprise, surprise, that's not how it works. And in fact, this is where a lot of the someday mentality came, is that at that point when I was so future focused, I wasn't present. I was only looking over there. Gotta go to get there, to get there. I missed out on so much life and so much connection. And one of those things was with time with my husband, who ended up being diagnosed and passed away 4 months later after my 25th birthday. Right. And so when I say there, we don't know about, someday isn't a day you want to
Right.
bank on, that is where that comes from. Right. And so that environment actually pushed me, that whole situation broke down a lot of walls, right? Broke down a lot of what I think success to be, right? So again, talking from experience about when life brings you to these points, right? And so to answer the question in terms of like the changes of success, I really saw that kind of typical version of success. And as I realized how much of my time I had put into today to somehow expect a someday that was never going to be there now, right? That's time I was going to spend with my husband. That I can't do that. I will never be able to do that with him. He is gone. And there I had an opportunity to do it. And I was like, I can't live that way. However, I do need to make a living, right? I get it, you guys. We got bills to pay. We live in the world that works on money. This is what we need to do. And so that was the first biggest turn where I went, okay, a job needs to do one of two things for me. It either is the thing I love. So and don't get me wrong, I understand if you do the thing you love, you never work in a day. That's full of it. Work is still work sometimes, okay? But you can go, this is what I love. And that motivation layer comes on real easy when you're immersed in something like that.
Right.
We're not always going to have that necessarily at all points in our life. So the other option was, or it can be whatever job, as long as it gives me the time to do the things that I love. If I am not finding space each day, not someday, each day, to do and live in the way and world I want, like it's not worth it. And what do I mean by that? It's not grandiose, everybody. It's not like, and I left to Tahiti today and tomorrow I'm going there. It is, I'm going to read the book. I'm going to do the yoga. I'm going to go for the walk I want to go to. I'm going to meet up with a friend. Is it the only thing I'm going to do? No, because I also have to, but I am going to make those things priority because I have learned that the good life is a series of well-lived days. That's all it is. And well-lived days are made up in the choices hour to hour, which goes back to, and to answer your question, what hasn't changed? Scheduling. I am incredibly organized. I have always have
Yes, you
been.
are.
My background's in clinical research, right? And there's this idea that, if we're going to live a full life, it's like go with the flow, and it's margaritas all day, with like this idea that it's just this free form anythingness, right? But the reality is to live it in the world today, in the way society works of now, it requires scheduling. It requires the same way that you give priority to going to the DMV for my Americans there, or the dentist, right? Two things that nobody enjoys. They're basically the same. Okay. Getting a tooth extraction or going to the DMV, that's our Department of Motor Vehicles. Pretty much the same experience, everybody. Yet we will put it on our little calendar. We will protect it. We'll say, no, I can't. I have to go to the dentist today. But do we do that for the time we want to read a book? Do we do that? Yeah, most of us don't. So that is the secret hack, I'm telling you, of this idea if you come to this point where you go, you know what, I do want to ask myself, not just who I want to be when I grow up, but what is a good life for me? I want to look at that. So that's step one, right? We look at that, we come to that, well, step two is to start to make it real. Remember, up in the air, down to the mud? And it's scheduling and just honoring it, honoring that slot, putting it on your calendar the same way a client call or anything else. That is one of the most powerful ones. And I do this for family time. I have a family time block, right? It is an appointment. And if somebody goes, I'd like to meet at that time, first of all, it's not even available on my calendar. But if I'm considering it, maybe life, come on, guys, life is not just black and white. So there are going to be times where like, hey, I have family time, but there's this great opportunity and they can only talk on Monday, which I don't have sessions. And I can look at that and go, what am I giving up by saying yes? Right? And what am I giving up by saying no? And instead of just going, I'll just available when everyone needs to, I can make a decision in reality and make decision based on the life I want to live. And the truth is, sometimes I go, hey, fam, love you guys. I got to take a call for 30 minutes because it's pretty important. I don't do it all the time. They're like, sure, whatever. My son's at game age now. He doesn't care. So, but the thing is that it is about taking these abstract big ideas, and that's what I love about what you're doing here, Sabine, the concept of joy, and taking it from this abstract, like, yay, feel good, to like, what does it mean in practice? What does it mean down in the dirt, in the mud, in the day-to-day? And how can we take those pieces and start to create our good hours, which lead to our good days, which end with a good life, right?
That's something I had to learn too, where I felt like I was very, very disciplined when it came to like my professional life, but I did not have the same discipline for my personal life or my personal well-being. And just yesterday, actually, so I train with a professional trainer twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And my trainer said, hey, we need to push our appointment back by 30 minutes. And I had somebody scheduled at that time for a call, but I had to take a step back and say, okay, if this were the other way around, I would make the call a priority. But wait a second, this is just as important. I can be just as disciplined about the things that are important for my health and my well-being as the professional. So, and the thing is, it's not black and white. Like I reached out to the person I had the call scheduled with, and I said, would you mind going 30 minutes later or later in the day? And they were like, of course, not a problem. So if we just try, instead of on autopilot, making everybody else and everything else a priority before we make ourselves a priority, that's like, it's golden and it works, So, and I was very proud of myself yesterday because on autopilot, I would have been like, oh, sorry, I can't train today. But no, because I am flexing that muscle and I'm using small opportunities to flex that muscle and say, wait a second, there's a gray. It's not black and white. There's a gray.
Like this is important to me. This is 2026 Sabine is committed to this. Then all of a sudden it has a different depth to it, right? It's not like, oh, whatever, I guess I just missed a workout. But that only happens because you have had that moment of presence. You pulled out for a moment and went, what do I want to do? Who am I going to be? And made those commitments, right? Otherwise, it's easy. We know, especially those of us in the professional space, we know how to show up for others. I mean, come on.
Right.
That's the easy part, right? The hardest is showing up for ourselves.
And I think I'm even talking about it, right? Because I was really happy Like
Yeah.
I was really happy and proud of myself afterwards. I'm like, look what you did. Wow. Okay. And that's where motivation comes from, to choose that way again next
Yeah.
time. Right.
Yeah.
So if I would have just said, oh, I'm just not going to have my workout, it would have been that one time, but I would have chosen that same way again the next time. But because it worked so well and I was proud of myself and it motivates me now next time, it's almost like you're rewiring the way you
Yes.
approach things, right? It's now registered. I'm like, oh, that felt really good. Let me try this again next time.
Yes, the rewiring statement that you made is a very, very real thing. Junction with my background in clinical research, I have a background in applied neuroscience. And one of the things that we do in our group all the time is something we call train your brain to succeed, right? And so the thing is that your brain does not know the difference between real or imagined, right? So Sabine,
Right.
if you had made a really conscious choice or even walked through mentally, like, I'm going to call them, I'm going to tell them I need to change the appointment, I'm going to do those things, and you actually didn't, your brain doesn't know the difference, right? Your brain's like, Sabine did that. She's amazing, right? This is why we can cry at movies, right? Because we might know, okay, those are two characters, right? But our brain's like, oh my gosh, it's so sad, right? And we're physically crying. Like we're having an actual physical, real world reaction to something that is not real, okay? So the reason this matters is that we can rewire our brain to believe that we're winning, to see that we're winning. So we're coming from a positive space. The one way we do that is literally by going through our wins for the day. Right.
Mm.
And people would struggle with it. So they're like, oh, it's a gratitude list. And it's like, it's not that. Actually, you scan the day, and I don't care how small or big, like there's no qualifications. Like I landed a client, I had a good sandwich, I showed up, and I was going to say didn't wear my pajamas, but maybe that's the win, is you did wear your pajamas, right? So you find those wins and you do that. So the experiment we usually do is we run it for a month, right? So you do 3 wins a day. You find them every day, and by the each week, that's 21 wins, right? You were
Wow.
literally training your brain to just constantly search for all the good things that are happening. And what happens when you're like, look how good it is? Guess what? Your attitude and approach to those other things
Mm.
are incredibly powerful, and it rewires your brain to see those things. Now, the second part, as I mentioned, the visualization, is that as well, if you visualize yourself doing the thing, okay, and I want you to hear this, the difference in that a lot of people mix up in this particular neuroscience point is they go visualize yourself winning, right? Visualize the A, visualize the bikini or whatever it is, right? Absolutely not. I'm telling you all, I'm sorry. That was very bad advice that somebody gave you. The true power in visualization for your brain is to visualize yourself doing the boring part you hate. Okay. It's imagine yourself waking up. If you're usually groggy and you're like, "Ugh," that's what you visualize. The groggy you grabbing the gym bag and begrudgingly going to the gym and showing up, right? It's showing you passing on the cake and really wishing you could have it. That's what we imagine. It's imagining yourself studying for the test, not getting the A. Because again, like we said, your brain doesn't know the difference between imagined or real. So what happens is your brain goes, look at us, look what we're doing. And then when the time comes for real that you need to do it, your
Oh,
brain's like, we've done this 3 times. We've done this 4 times. That is
I
one
love
of
that.
easiest brain hacks. Jim Rohn says it. Something simple to do is also just as simple not to do. All right. So for those of you that are hearing this, go, oh my gosh, maybe I'm going to try the 3 wins practice. Right? What are my 3 wins for the day? And again, please don't like, oh, for my health. The point is actually to scan the reality of the day and go, you know what? I really like that person said I had a nice shirt or I had a good ice cream today. That's the practice. All right.
Wow.
That's what it is. So I just had to share that one.
Love that. How do you help somebody recognize that they're actually living by default and not by
Mm.
choice? What
Oh
are
yeah.
little signs or, signals that are popping up that you're like, oh, there it is. Okay.
I mean, a lot of it comes even in just in language, right? And I think the hard thing is that
Mm.
it's normalized to be at a pace where you're not spending a lot of time taking care of yourself. In the space of moms and wives, like, goodness gracious, talk about being conditioned to be like, giving your shirt off your back. It's a compliment to moms to be like, she would do anything for anyone, right? And like, I get it. I get why that sounds nice, but maybe she needed that shirt and it actually should have been for her. Okay. And so when you start like kind of hearing this depletion and things, it's hard for us to notice because, again, that's where everyone's at. That's normal. For a lot of us, it's probably the person we were raised by was also giving, right? So it's really, really tough, I think, for us to even recognize. But I think it comes in those moments of depletion, those moments of looking at that stack of books that you've wanted to read, and I would say, honestly, one of my big things, my biggest flags is if you start using the word someday, if you start going, someday, I'm going to go to Italy. Someday I'm going to start running. Someday. And I'll be honest, I have very close family members who are someday people, and I teach this, right? But it's still this idea that I can hope and long for it, but zero action and plan towards it, right? And this is, again, where we take our responsibility out of it, because we have the ability to respond to that desire and go, okay, what does that mean? What does that look like? What parts of Italy? How long would I want to go? What would it cost? And all of a sudden we get tangible to go, well, I would need this much money. How would I raise that much money? Now we're working towards the life we want. But if everything is someday, I would, if I had to restate my answer, that's going to be the first one. If you're using a lot of someday language, because you're putting it out to a day that doesn't exist. Like I said, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's no someday. That reality of it. And we can't live a someday life. Like, it's not, because again, it's not promised. I would say that's your biggest red flag right there. If you're hearing yourself say someday, go, wait a minute. I'm going to figure out a plan. Not a someday.
I also think we can feel it in our bodies. Oh, I should be doing this. Or, I recently moved and I live on my own and I needed curtains, blackout curtains. And I was like, I can do this. I can hang my own curtains. I am strong. I can do this. And while I was doing it, I was close to tears. Like, I had to drill the holes and like make it all even. And I'm on the ladder. It really stressed me out. And the dog was watching me. And it really stressed her out, because afterwards I realized she had peed all over the living room. And then I sat with her after and I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I not listening to my body? It's not like I can't hire somebody to hang these for me or ask a friend, and I sat with it and I was like, wow, if you would have taken a moment to think about what other options, again, there's the gray, right? And if you would have listened to your body, that this really doesn't feel good. Like, I really don't want to do that. And not because I'm lazy. I know I'm not lazy. I'm super hardworking, but there's things that just don't feel right. And I feel like we don't listen inward to the signs our body's giving us. And like, darn it, even the dog felt it, how stressed out I was. I was sitting there holding, I'm like, I'm an idiot. Why? Like, why am I not doing what I'm preaching,
Because it is the dark side of capable. It is the dark side of motivation. It is the dark side of professional, right? For those of us who are those type A overachievers, or just know you can do it, right? The dark side of that is that we just do it. We meet the call. There's no question. Yeah. We show up. Someone needs us. We do it. My goodness, it's amazing. We make incredible business people. We're awesome friends. Let's be honest. Okay. We're probably one of the best friends in the group, right? You can always count on us. The dark side, though, is that it takes our body screaming at us and the dog peeing to create those moments like we were just talking about, right? Like, fortunately for Sabine, it wasn't a moment of tragedy and loss,
right?
But it was enough to shake her up, to be like, oh my gosh, it brought her back to the present. It brought her back to go, wait a minute. And so I think that goes back to the thing we're talking about in those small habits, is that it's one thing to go, I should do that. Yeah, okay, there's a lot of things I should do. But if I actually create a space that's 30 minutes every Tuesday at 2, where I go, what do I want this week? Or even if it's big, who do I want to be this life? I don't know what your Tuesdays are like, but if you have that as a simple regimen, we won't get to that point, right? We can
Right.
check in that we're creating presence. We're creating, you know what I want to say too? It's not just we're creating that presentful moment, but just like meditation, it's a practice, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of times people think meditation is the goal, like, oh, I'm supposed to sit in there and that's the thing. No, it's not. That's the practice. Because you're practicing for the moment of chaos where everything goes and you're able to just be like and calm and think, right?
Right.
And so the same thing about zooming out and creating presence, it's a process, something that you can schedule that eventually we learn as a skill. We catch
Right.
beforehand to go, whoa, wait a minute. How am I feeling? Is this what I want? Or we don't, or we push, and we let our body and everything else go, what are you doing? And we've all
Mhm.
done it. We are all doing it. I mean, goodness. And I think that's the thing, is to go, it's not what's wrong with me, or when things slow down. Oh my gosh, is that not a lie we tell ourselves so much? When things slow down, when is that? When is that? Give me a date. I want to know. I've heard it. I've been in this business so long. I tell you how many entrepreneurs like, well, I have one client I worked with many years, and it was like, I mean, we've gone through all the ages. And it was like, when this is finalized, oh, when my kids finally get to high school, when they get to college. I'm telling you guys, the kids have graduated college. Graduated college. Okay. So
They
tell
have
me,
multiple degrees.
calming down. Yes, like, come on. And so that's the thing, is that to go, instead of trying to like find it, make it, and go, oh, it's just when things slow down, go, if I just schedule the darn 30 minutes, maybe I'll start. And I start with 30, start with 10, whatever
Right.
it takes to go, can I just breathe for a moment and go, how do I feel? How is this, my body? And this is something I'll give you all real quick right now. As you're listening to this, I don't know where you are. If you're driving, you might need to do something different, but anywhere else, sit there. And I ideally sit. If you're standing, that's fine too. And I want you to put your feet on the ground. Your
Mhm.
both feet. You might already have them there. That's fine. Think about your feet being on the ground. Think about them, that connection. You ever notice? So you're like, oh, I actually feel the floor. You don't notice when you're typing. Right now, you might go, oh, yeah, those are my toes. Those are my feet. How does it feel? I'm just going to be quiet for a second. Do you feel that? That's it. That's a moment of presence. It can be that simple.
Mm.
But again, simple to do is just as simple not to do. Right? So there are so many powerful things that don't require running to the temple for a year, right? They don't
Yes.
require blowing up your life, and they don't require a major tragedy or something coming to your
Mhm.
life. They can present it. Absolutely. Those things will present the opportunity, but you also have the responsibility, I'm going to use that word today, to find that space of presence for yourself. Because the world's
Yeah.
not going to offer to it. Your kids that love you so much, they're not going to offer to it. Your husband can offer to it. Your wife, whoever's, they're
Mhm.
not going to offer. You know how much they care for you. Only you can do that. And so in these simple moments and these little tiny habits, maybe it is carving that out. Maybe it is writing your book reading like an appointment. Maybe it is writing on your list, because again, I just told you to do the wins, right?
Right.
What are you going to do it though? Put it on your calendar. Put it on your calendar, okay? Like a real thing. Try those things and see what shifts in you when you start participating in your life in presence, right?
Right. So I think with all of these things, there's a lot of programming. We're just so used to it, to putting joy as something that comes after the effort, that is a sacrifice, or that comes after we have achieved something, right? And the question is, okay, if this, now we're in our 40s, 50s, or 60s, and we have lived this way, what are we risking here? What actually possibly breaks if we live that way?
Yeah. Well, I talked to my son about this a lot, and this is something that came from Sadhguru as well. And he goes, we shouldn't suffer the future, right? And so my son will tell him, like, right now it's the shower, right? You got to take a shower. You're going to have to take a shower today. That's going to be later on today. Okay? He's 10, so that's the age we're at. And he will just lose, oh, I got to do it. And I'm like, buddy, you're not even in the shower. And look at this suffering that you're going through, right? He has a choice. I tell him, you have a choice right now. You are choosing to suffer. I said, are you in the shower? No. You in the water? No. look how harsh it is right now. It's tough, And I go, let's not suffer the future. What can we do right now? How can we look at it right now? And the reality of it is if we realize we don't suffer the future, then we can continue enjoy. And more times than not, the suffering we predicted doesn't even show up, right? Like think
Right.
about something you've put off or, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have that conversation. I don't want to send that email. We build it up, we suffer it, and then we do it. And we're like, oh, it actually turned out really
Yes.
well. That wasn't so bad, right? And so we can have that same experience by choosing the joy in it, right? And I'm not saying toxic positivity, right? I mean, definitely, we got to feel our feelings. We got to know anger has a presence, it has a purpose, sadness, all of those things happen. But the day to day, if your default answer and everything is like so busy or, life is this, like, is that where we want to be? Because we can
Mm.
choose joy. We can choose joy. We can choose to say, yeah, I have to take a shower, but I don't have to take it right now. And I could even maybe have fun with it. Maybe I could bring in my favorite toys. Maybe I can do something, right? There's a way to realize, and you said this earlier to bring us full circle on this, is that we have the choice. It is a choice. It feels like it's not, but that's the knee-jerk reaction because we haven't practiced
Right.
these things, right?
Yes.
So it's one thing to know what you don't want to do. I don't want to be a grump, or I don't want to do this. I always use the Californian in me uses the example of I don't want to yell at people in traffic because that's like a thing, right? And I go, that's all great. But if you haven't thought about what you're going to do instead, then guess what happens when that guy slams on his brakes? It's going to be what you've always done because that's all you've practiced.
Yeah.
It's all you practice. So let's practice joy and see what happens that way.
Yes. I think the big question is, do you believe that joy can coexist with ambition, with achieving? Because, I mean, some people might be like, I'm going to have to put one thing on hold to have the other, or
Yeah.
turn it back, turn my expectations back, what I want for myself. Do you think it can
Yeah.
coexist?
I think there's no other way. I am 100% proponent that this idea of an entrepreneur is someone, I mean, in my world, it's entrepreneurship, right? But an entrepreneur is someone who, quits a 40-hour job to work an 80 hour, right? And you got to 10X and you got to suffer. And like, oh, we love the stories of founders like, oh, I almost lost everything. And I was sleeping under a desk and we made it. And it's like, yeah, nobody does the follow-up interview with, how's your home life? Do you know how to
Yes.
relax? Have you learned how to enjoy all that money you've made? Or any of those habits actually serving you at this point? Usually not. And this again goes back to why I'm really focused on life first business. Because two things that need to coexist, and this really connects with the joy thing as well, is I need to be present and enjoy my life today as if it's my last.
Mm.
I need to run a business that is focused on future potential, right? So
Right.
I need to be present today and future focused. How the heck do we do that? And that's where we come in to the culmination of all that we've been talking about today. We take the moment to zoom out and we go, what do I want my days to look and feel like? Because right now, the only power I have is today. The only day I'm promised is today. And then when you wake up tomorrow, it's that day and then that day, right? As we keep doing
Right.
that. So we can make decisions to go, what would feel really good? What do I want to do? Like, I love playing guitar. I don't play guitar all the time. I am by no means, I'm a campfire musician, everybody. So now it's all I am. Okay. I love it. It's not my top priority. I'm not trying to be, but I want to have space for that every now and then. It's not every day. It doesn't say guitar every day. I mean, and that's another thing. When I caution y'all with you overschedulers, like every day I'm going to do it. No, I have my yoga every day, right? My guitars, once a month I'll visit it, right? And art I'll do. But I have those things that I caught myself saying someday I want to get back to my art. Someday I'm going to do my guitar. Why someday? I can do a little bit of that now while I'm also working on Q2 content plans and calendars, right? I'm already in June. My calendar's off to the side here. It's 3 feet by 4 feet. I have stuff scheduled in December. Way future focused. Like I am the organizing queen, okay? However, I have space today for family. I have space today to enjoy my time. I have space today for those little things. No, my space today isn't margaritas on the beach all day, but I get a little piece. I get a little part.
Yeah.
And what did he say? Every one of those lead up to well-lived days, which lead up to a good life. It's not one single moment. Right. And so the idea of life first business in my world is that the first thing we do is we ask you what you want in your life. We talk
Yeah.
about your vision, the things that matter to you, and what space that needs in the ideal world, right? If my life could do anything, I would do this. And then we take the other part, the ambition, and we go, okay, we're going to find space for life. That's the life first part, and then bring in the business strategy, because that is where you get to be ambitious. You get to run a business in a balanced way, in a way that serves you. So I will counter that question by I dare anybody who says otherwise to come talk to me, that they need to expend themselves 10x. I don't need to 10x anything. Okay. I just need what's going to be good for me right now. Right. So yes, they're required for the true well-lived life. They need to coincide.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And for that, so if people do want to reach out to you, I will, of course, share all of Tanya's information in the show notes down below. So if you want to connect with her and explore her work further, or maybe you want to work with her, you can find all of that there. But before we wrap up, I want to ask you, Tanya, is there anything you think we haven't talked about that needs to be mentioned?
I mean, we were pretty awesome, right? I think we covered a really good gamut of things. Well, and just real quick out there, I am Tanya MFK, and if some of you are like, I didn't catch that, what is it? It's because my name's Tanya Marie Figueres Kreisinger, and it's a mouthful. It's got 3 languages involved. No one's going to spell it. So Tanya MFK is where I am everywhere. You'll be able to find me easily. We have a ton of free resources all the time, so you're not going to get chased after or anything if you come hang out with us. So definitely do that. And as far as something we haven't covered, I mean, I think it's not so much what we haven't covered, but I think if we were to bring it all around, right? We talked about all these different tips and all these different things and joy. And I think in the end, it's just going, what is joy to you, right? That word can carry so many things, but that's actually the thing for you to figure out. It's like, well, what is in that little word? What does that mean for me? And if you just start there, I think all the other stuff we talked about today will start to show itself and present itself for you to make those decisions. But the first thing is just going, well, what's my definition? What would joy look like in my world this week? Don't make it too abstract. My last tip, do not make it too abstract. Like, what is joy? I mean, like, what would it be today if I said that was joyful? And maybe it's a word you're not used to using. So that's fun to play with as well. Like to go, what would I say joyful is? What would be joyful today? And I'm using quotes in my fingers in case you guys can't see me here, but like, what's joyful or what's joyful this week? Teach yourself to kind of define it. Just start there. And then listen to this again and then get all our tips, okay? That's my last thing I would say. Remember, you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There is no someday on the calendar. So if you want to make it real, get it on a calendar, get a plan, and make your life happen.
Yes. Amen.
Yes, indeed. I'll get off my preacher box now.
So, Tanya, before you go, I just want to take a moment to recap what we explored today, because this conversation was such a powerful reminder that joy isn't something we earn later, but something we practice now. We talked about the someday myth, how so many of us live life like it will begin once things slow down, or once the kids have left the house, or once the business is stable. And Tanya reminded us there is no magical someday. Tomorrow isn't promised, so the time to live is now. She shared some really practical and powerful ways to bring big ideas down into real life, like scheduling joy the same way we schedule responsibility, and training our brain to notice wins, and even using visualization to rehearse the boring, the hard parts, not just the outcome. And maybe the question that matters the most is, what does joy mean to you this week? Not in theory, but in the mud of real life. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you for this conversation. And your way of cutting through all this noise and bringing people back to choice and clarity has definitely shaped how I think about joy. And like the learning just doesn't stop. The more people, exceptional people that I talk to, the more it gets shaped and massaged again and again. And I know it's going to give so many other listeners permission to stop living by default and start listening to what actually feels good, what fits. So I am really grateful that you joined us today. Thank you so much, Tanya.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I look forward to more conversations like this. Thank you so much.
Same here. Thank you, Tanya. So, thank you for being here with me today. And if something in this episode resonated with you, don't just move on. Take one small, honest step today. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send it to them. Share it with them. Subscribe to the Pick Joy podcast for more, and I will see you here next time.